And another thing I want to point out, I will say that we are seeing evidence that there is a lot more demand for physical silver that could be, the start of a run on physical gold and silver.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And fortunately,
You're incorrigible.
Well, I don't know about all that, but you can see Denver Dave Kranzler is
It's
over
5
there.
syllables. I hope the audience is impressed. That's a 5-syllable word right there.
It's very big and impressive. So as you can see, Dave was reading the dictionary last night in preparation for today's episode, thereby once again demonstrating the commitment to the show, which I know I've been excited for this particular episode of Kranzler's Silver and Gold Update because we've finally seen some delivery notices in the silver market. And Dave, I know you want to do a disclaimer of how you think that all of the data is nonsense, which I don't necessarily disagree with, just to the degree I thought at least the data that is being presented about silver is stunning on the face of it. So before we start that, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, I guess. I'm looking forward to a long weekend.
Your 2 p.m. today is the cutoff. We're recording on a Thursday, so you're going to get outside and do something fun, right?
Well, I do something fun outside every day, but I'm just looking forward to taking a break from working. I've already worked harder this week than I meant to.
Well, we don't want to keep that trend going. So we'll dig right into the fun stuff. And first chart is Dave's big disclaimer. He emailed to me. Here's the CME group even disclaiming any responsibility for their own data, as you see in the yellow. The data is taken from sources believed to be reliable. The commodity exchange disclaims all liability. Thanks. Although actually, Dave, I'll tell you what, I will call that.
You left the important part out with regard to the accuracy or completeness. And if you've got questions about it, I highlighted the phone number for the CME there.
Well, I was just going to say, I will call them. Maybe we can get someone on the show and have them.
You should record that call.
Well, I'm not going to, blindside anybody, but I did call SLV. I don't remember if it was BlackRock or it was the iShares number that I found. And they claimed that I thought it was at least as my responsibility as hosting this show or being a silver analyst, at least followed up. And they said that, yes, the metal is added. So whether it is or not, at least that is what they say. So Dave.
It doesn't make sense because they were telling us in April and March that there was a shortage of bars. So how can they be adding, tens and 20s tons worth of gold every day to the GLD trust? I don't look at the inflows because I definitely don't believe the number. We already know that they had to lease gold from the Bank of England for GLD. So, and those bars don't leave the Bank of England vault. So, yeah, the gold bars may be quote unquote added, but it's a paper entry only. Let's look at the gold receivable number.
I hear you. And
not all the bars are inside the HSBC vault. Probably a not unmeaningful percentage are not in HSBC's vault. So essentially, GLD is a product of accounting entries.
Yeah, plus you have HSBC, the preferred bank of your average Mexican money drug launderer, as the custodian. Similarly, in SLV, you have JP Morgan, who has a case ongoing with the Department of Justice and being charged with the RICO statute. And
if either of those two banks are running their GLD in the case of HSBC and their SLV vault in the case of JP Morgan, honestly, ethically, and morally, with full transparency, it is the only part of their business across the entire organization that is run honestly, reported honestly, and conducted ethically and morally. Now, what are the odds of that being the case?
Well, I don't think it's too high. And again, it is
How
interesting.
about a bagel? It's a 0% odd.
Well, I hear you, big daddy. I'm on it. And although Dave, I would let you know that I finally did get the first draft of the petition I've started that people will be able to sign, at least, and we'll send it to the CFTC and Department of Justice. That at least there's enough based on the felonies that the bank has already been found guilty of. I believe over $35 billion of fines in the last 10 or 20 years. I think there's at least enough to say, like, you guys can't play in gold and silver. Like, go do whatever else, but leave gold and silver alone. So we'll see
Too
how
late,
that.
man.
Well,
The precious metals world is already too far down the rabbit hole. The Jack Russell Terriers that we can't catch it.
well, I think that we can still, at least for the people who want to understand what's going on and why they should look at some of these numbers more carefully. Um, because here's something I found interesting. We see that there's 13 million contracts now up for delivery.
No, no, 13,000.
13,000 up for delivery. So that's 65 million ounces. The reports showed 24 million ounces going into the Silver Trust in the last 3 days. So that's 89 million ounces in a market that, according to Silver Institute numbers, when you add in the exchange traded products, showed a 100 million ounce deficit last year, 50 million ounces before that. And we've also had a lot of the mines shut down. So it's kind of almost hard for those numbers to possibly be accurate.
That's why that disclaimer is at the bottom of that spreadsheet.
I hear you.
It's a hazmat suit.
Well, do you have any thoughts, at least, on what these numbers are? That the amounts just are stunning, though. If I don't, I don't know why they would lie and say that there's more metal being delivered than there actually is, but just any comments on any of that or any other happenings that we've seen in these last couple of days in silver?
Sure, if you want to go back to the silver inventory graphic, might
Okay.
be helpful for illustrative purposes. There you go. So what they're when they say deliveries, I always put quotes around deliveries because the bars aren't being delivered anywhere. The bar, let's just say that the total registered vault, that's collectively all of the vault custodians. So when there's deliveries, all it is the electronically created warrant that describes the specific bars and who has title to the bars. That all that does is the warrant is transferred from the issuing party, which is the deliverer, to the party that's stopping the issuance, which is the delivery. Okay, so based on the silver inventory, the registered silver inventory since delivery started, there hasn't been, none of the bars have been removed from any of the vaults. All right. So I mean, when that says withdrawn, that might just mean that, so you know someone who has silver in a COMEX vault but has not made it available for to be delivered, to be classified as registered, you know that 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 silver might have just been moved inside the vault from an unallocated account to an allocated account, and whether or not the bars really were moved is open for debate. But until that, the only way it's a valid delivery is if that 125 million number were to be reduced by 65 million, because then that would mean that those bars and also the combined total was reduced by 65 million, because then that would mean that the bars were actually removed from the vault. Now, I've been through this process before. We took delivery of silver bars in my fund back in, I think it was for April Silver, and it took us 6 weeks, 6 extra weeks than it was supposed to actually get to the point where we could send a FedEx truck, it's either FedEx or Brinks, I can't remember, and have the bars put inside that truck, removed from the COMEX vault, the HSBC vault, and shipped to our depository in Delaware, our non-COMEX depository. So, and that's brings up another point. I mean, actually now the depository we use, they've actually been approved as a COMEX depository. So our bars, our bars, I should fly out there and do a personal audit, even though we have auditors, but our bars may be part of that eligible inventory there because the vault we use is a COMEX approved vault. So they might just say, oh hey, let's just take all the bars in this depository and count it as eligible silver. You see what I'm saying? We have no idea what's going on beneath the surface. The gold and silver world is opaque intentionally, and it gets more opaque every year. Remember the London fix?
Yeah.
They said when they restructured it that they were going to make everything more transparent. Well, before that restructuring, they used to release the results of the AM and the PM fix about an hour after the fix occurred. Now they don't release the results until like midnight New York time. So there's like half a day to 3/4 of a day between both fixes and when they actually release the results. Now, would you define that as more transparent or less transparent? I have my view.
Well, I agree with everything you're saying. I guess I'm just perhaps hoping we can point that out, especially for a lot of people that don't know this yet. I know that you know it.
I just want people to take all the numbers that you see as a caveat. Now, if those bars were actually the 65 million ounces have actually been delivered, then that means that, delivered in terms of, enabling the rightful owners of those bars to call up the COMEX and say, hey man, I want to take my bars and move them somewhere to my personal storage. To me, that's a true delivery. And if we start seeing that happen, that's when that's when the run is starting.
So I guess maybe a good way of phrasing this, what is the COMEX from a legal standpoint when they put, here you have these are the gold futures, you see the 55,000 from now completed for June, already off to 4,000 in July. When they put this number up here, according to their delivery process, so now that this has happened, what are they at least claiming is occurring with these contracts that have gone up for delivery?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The 55,000 is, however many ounces of gold, it would be 5 million ounces of gold, right? 5.5 million ounces of gold.
Yep.
Essentially what it's saying is that ownership the title to those bars has changed from the deliverer to the deliveree. It doesn't say anything about whether or not the bars have been actually the deliverees have taken actual physical possession of the bars. I'm defining a true delivery as when the rightful owner takes physical possession of the bars and moves them to a separate storage facility.
I gotcha. Although, would you say that at least if...
Now the COMEX, I will say, the COMEX incentivizes bar owners to leave their bars in COMEX vaults because their storage fees are cheaper than non-COMEX vaults. So for the gold and silver bars we have in our fund, we're paying a higher fee because we have our bars in a allocated account inside a vault that is approved for COMEX use, but our bars technically are allocated.
Yep. So would you say
meaning,
that...
they're in a little part of the vault that says Precious Metals Opportunity Fund, a little paper, a little sticky note hanging above the bin area or the floor area where our bars are sitting.
Gotcha. So Dave, would you say that at least if the COMEX data is accurate as they present it, which we've discussed is an if, but at least if it is, that based on these numbers, would you say that there is, you could call that a run on the COMEX gold and silver just based
I
on?
would call it a bona fide potential run, and it'll become a real run if we start to see those numbers decline materially over the next several months.
Great. Well, I think that's a great way of phrasing it. I'm not trying to.
Let's put it this way. The people who are standing for delivery, they certainly harbor the intent of potentially taking possession of those bars. And I would think that, when the brown stuff really starts hitting the fan blades, that's what we could see happen. But when that does start to happen, it'll be interesting to hear any reports as to how easy it's been for them to get those bars removed. Like I said, it for us, it was like pulling teeth, and that was in 2009.
Yeah. Do we have any data yet whether any gold has been removed now that that month has passed?
I don't think so, because I think, if I recall, at the beginning of the June gold delivery period, I thought there was about 30 million total ounces in the COMEX of gold bars, and now they're saying there's 32 million. I guess it's quite possible that some of the gold could have been removed, but more has been replaced than has been removed, which is odd considering, we've been told that there is a shortage of gold bars.
Well, I'll take a look through this one and we can look back into that next week.
I used to spend all my time tracking all this stuff, but I've just concluded that it's not worth it, because, again, it gets back to what's the reliability of the numbers.
Yeah, well, take a breather, Big Hoss. You got the young bucks like myself carrying on the torch, and I find it interesting to dig in. And again, I'm not trying to create any impression. I agree with what you're saying. I just trying to put it in context for people that, may not be aware yet, because I think it is that important. And
I agree. We are seeing by far a record level of deliveries.
I mean, it's like either they're lying about the
And like I
data.
said, it does set up the potential for a serious run. And it would be interesting to know who's on the other side of, who the deliveries are. If you go through that report, I haven't gone through the silver report to see the differentiation between the house account and the customer accounts. But I will say that with gold, I believe Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, their house accounts took delivery of a lot of gold last month. For sure, Goldman, and it was either HSBC or JP Morgan that their house account took delivery of a lot of gold. So certainly, who knows? They may have already removed those bars from the COMEX vault, and maybe more bars got shipped in, or they may have removed them and they're still reporting their numbers as if the bars are sitting in the vault. That's why the disclaimer's at the bottom of that inventory report.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here so we can give people information that they can't find from the exchange that provides information. I do like that disclaimer. It's like, right, here's the data. It might be wrong. We don't know where it came from. It's like those, apparently there have been a couple partial audits of Fort Knox since
there haven't been any audits
years. But
since Eisenhower was in office. There's been no official independent audits. Or you mean the audit where Mnuchin goes in there and brings out a bar and says the gold's all here?
He did not say the gold is there. He said gold is safe, which
the gold is safe. Yeah. Are you considering that a partial audit?
No, not even that. But there was a report I read that showed that they had done 12 partial audits, of which the Treasury had lost 7 of them. And then on these, it's like what they called an audit. It was like they would open one door, look at 2 or 3 bars, but nobody knows who did the assay or who did the audit.
They keep some gold in Fort Knox for tourism purposes. It's a tourist attraction.
No, sir. I actually thought that was the case, and I drove by there once back in 2016. I guess that was a year before I met you, because I thought it'd be like, you can take a tour of the Federal Reserve in New York. And in fact, I'm going to be headed that way maybe in October, and I'll have my camera ready to go on that one. Maybe, Dave, maybe we could live stream our call from the Federal Reserve lobby. It's all right. Yeah, you can get excited. That's a good one. I'm gonna put that on the
Which
October
Fed, the New
calendar.
York Fed or the main Fed in DC?
Well, I mean, if you're already gonna brave it over to the East Coast, I may as well hit up both. But in either case, Fort Knox, there's no tourist thing. I actually drove there. I ended up at the Army base. The guy's like, "What are you doing here?" And
My father was stationed there during the Korean War.
Yep. Well, the Army base is there, but it's like I didn't even notice Fort Knox. So yeah, I turned and drove around, and it's kind of on like a rounded corner, but it's not like a super highway, but it's not a road you can stop on. And it was just weird because there was nobody out there. Like if there was a security guard, he was not outside. There was like a car that looked like it'd been sitting there for 15 years, and just like it looks, I wonder if anyone ever else took a look there. I mean, it looked like nothing was going on. So unfortunately, no tour. But we'll see. Maybe maybe next week I'll do some Freedom of Information Act requests on Fort Knox. These are my hobbies, Dave. So don't judge. But I got one last one for you before we wrap up today. And I know you saw this, but apparently there were some copper bars floating around over there in China. And I would love to hear any thoughts you had on that one.
I mean, honestly, I didn't really follow the story. I saw that there were fake bars, and you got to ask yourself, there's been the mainstream media here has been, producing a lot of anti-China reports, making it seem like the U.S. never does anything wrong. So you got to wonder, who knows if that bar that Mnuchin held up outside of Fort Knox, how do you know that's a real gold bar? I mean, then the other thing that kind of bored me about that article, I mean, from time to time, there's always articles that surface about fake gold going around. There was, and I want to say back in 2006 or 2007, there was a bunch of fake gold bars going around that allegedly came from China. So, I mean, when you think about the massive, the amount of the size and the scale of the dollars involved in the precious metals industry, I mean, of course, there's going to be some fraud that goes on. It's that way in every business. I mean, look at Boeing. Boeing knowingly put unsafe planes in the air and ended up killing people. So, why? Because it saved them a little bit of money, and it let them produce better operating margin numbers for a few quarters, right?
Yep.
Cut expenses on safety features of planes, and watch your stock price go up when you have an earnings beat, and then the insiders dump shares into the market, and then the guilty CEO gets fired, and he gets to walk away with a $65 million golden parachute package. So are there fraudulent bars circulating around the world? Sure there are. That's why you got to be extra careful when you're operating in the precious metals world.
Yeah,
That's why I always tell people, unless they're investing millions and millions, just buy 1 ounce sovereign minted bullion coins, gold eagles, gold maple leafs, Chinese pandas, Austrian philharmonics, Australian kangaroos, because those are extremely hard to counterfeit, and you're going to be buying them from reliable sources, and you can be 100% certain that they're not fake gold coins.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that insight. A good tip from
or silver coins, as the case may be.
Of course. I mean, who's buying gold these days with silver at $18?
Silver is so cheap. And another thing I want to point out, I will say that we are seeing evidence that there is a lot more demand for physical silver that could be, the start of a run on physical gold and silver. I mean, look at what gold and silver have done just this week. I mean, in a week when historically, a holiday shortened week when most people aren't even around or working that hard. I haven't worked that hard this week. Every day gold's been hit, it bounces right back. I mean, right after the AM London fix this morning, gold gets bounced for almost $20, and then a couple hours later, all of a sudden, gold is higher than it was at the start of or at the consummation of the AM London fix. So there is like a building demand for gold and silver. Silver is going to outperform gold on the upside. And so if you're thinking about buying gold or silver, start with silver.
Yeah, there we go. Now we got them going. All right, I like it. A welcome contribution to Silver Talk Radio here today, Dave. And hey, I actually pulled it up. You're going to love this. Here's the actual quote from Mnuchin. I assume the gold is still there. And then my favorite, he goes on to say, and this is a former movie producer, it would really be quite a movie if we walked in there and there was no gold. And then he says gold is safe on Twitter. So take that as you will. It's incredible, although fortunately, the antidote to government, central banks, and all sorts of shenanigans out there in the financial world is look at the Mining Stock Journal backing up the Caterpillar full of, what are those, hundreds or, yeah, but what about we get some silver in the back of that truck rather than that paper fiat there, Dave? Otherwise, I love the Mining Stock Journal.
Yeah, and in fact, the next issue, I'm going to have some interesting goodies there. I'm starting to look at a beaten down silver mining stock that I think is a fantastic buy, and I'll have some reviews on some junior mining companies that have been, let's just say, well marketed by their promoters over the last few months. So the next new issue is going to which is next Thursday, will have a lot of goodies in there.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And speaking of goodies, I heard you got a new book this week. Is that right?
Yes. Can't wait to start reading it this weekend.
Wow. There we go. Let me see chapter 1 with the heading for Dave Kranzler. I still have not gotten my copy yet. So again, to everyone who has pre-ordered a copy, they are officially, there's chapter 1, Dave Kranzler. That's hot. Yeah.
It's a nice book too. I like it.
Well, that's great to hear. We've been getting some great feedback so far. If you pre-ordered, they officially are starting their Amazon process. So hopefully in the next week. Appreciate your patience, but I don't even have one yet, so they're coming. And
mine was delayed. I'm supposed to get 2-day free delivery as a Prime member, and it was more like 5-day free delivery. Why even be a member of Prime if you got to wait 5 days to get something?
Well, I know they're getting things queued up to print the thing on demand, and we're just grateful that it is available. So it's coming. Dave, I thank you again for all of your insight, the kind of stuff that you can't find in the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, London School of Economics, Wharton Business School, CNBC, Bloomberg, or any of the other sources that people are going after when you could just get the Mining Stock Journal for $20 a month. I mean, how can you top that? So thank you for being you. Go smash the tennis balls around. Maybe I'll come visit you sometime this weekend, borrow your book. And folks, if you want any more coverage, especially if you'd like to know what's happening actually on the physical level, well, yesterday we released a call with Andy Scheckman and Silver Bill Murphy digging into all this. Where is the silver coming from? And it's coming your way now.